think this is a really special event, and I'm glad to see that we have a packed house. And firefighters, I appreciate you bringing the ladder truck. I knew you guys wouldn't let me down if it's still out there. I'd like to welcome firefighters and their families here tonight, our community members, members of the Prince of Peace Lutheran Church on 6 Mile in Caledonia, and of course our village officials. Our guest of honor tonight is Pastor Chris Loki and his family, his wife Corinne and their 4 children, Levi, Katie, Anna, and Ben. I'm proud to honor 6 members of the Caledonia Fire Department tonight who made a difference in our community despite having to save a life as being part of your job description. I think it's important that even though every day you come to work with the expectation of having these emergencies and these life-saving events, that I think it's important that you're recognized for them. And I also think the chief is super excited that I'm up here wearing red and not blue. For those of you who don't know me, I am Holly McManus. I'm trustee number 5 on the Village of Caledonia board, one of your elected officials, and I'm also a police officer by day. So I make sure to get my digs in on you firefighters whenever I can. But tonight is a special night, and I'm honored to be able to come before you and present these awards to you. So a little bit about why we're here. On Sunday, December 4th, 2022, it was a normal Sunday, probably preparing. We had service. My little one went to Sunday school. I remember talking with Pastor Chris afterwards. My aunt was in hospice, and he was willing to drive all the way out to Conwalk and speak with her and see her, and we were making those arrangements. And I left, and on a normal Sunday, Pastor Chris was playing basketball with members of the church after the service. I had him send me an email with some description, because I think it's important when we recognize these events and these calls for life-saving measures, that members that hear this also know what he was experiencing physically, so that because you're here tonight, if something like this happens to you, we have a very fine Caledonia Fire Department there to help you out. But Pastor Chris mentioned that he was playing basketball and he started feeling lethargic and he started to cramp a little bit. And as time progressed, he began to get sweaty, lightheaded, nauseous, and then his arm went numb. That's usually the standard that you hear about when it comes to heart attacks. Luckily we have some very present members of our congregation who can appreciate what he was going through and made some recommendations. They called one of the members who was a nurse and said, call 911 immediately. Lieutenant Andy Pritzel is a member of our congregation as well. He happened to be on duty, if I know that correctly. And he was one of the ones that responded when 911 happened. Now, Pastor Chris told me he remembers Andy coming and thinking to myself, well, we just called you. How did you know to get here? But he doesn't remember much. He did go into a full heart attack. And when Andy and the other members of the fire department, Lieutenant Pritzel and the other members of the fire department got there, they administered CPR and they were able to administer some successful shocks from an AED machine to get Pastor Chris's heart back into a rhythm that was sustainable. He was transported. He does remember his wife Corinne being there. He told me that was a huge deal for him, that he remembers her coming. And when he finally came to, he was told by the doctors, by the hospital staff, that he had what we all know and have heard before as the widowmaker. Now there's a reason that they call it that. It's because it's 100% blockage, and it generally only has a 12% survival rate if you're not near a hospital. We all know that 6 Mile and 32 isn't close enough to a hospital to make those odds any better. I have chills as I talk about this, because I can only imagine what your family went through. We know what we went through as a congregation, but then the members of the fire department to successfully be able to save someone's life and get them the much needed medical care that Pastor Chris needed. 3 months later, Pastor Chris is happy to say that he did not need a pacemaker, that his ejection fraction, if I say that right, how well your heart beats, needs to be between a certain number, and this ejection fraction is usually between 50 and 60 for a healthy person. He is at 55. So there is no pacemaker in the future. He received 1 stent in a fully blocked artery of his heart on that day. So I do remember that he did our Christmas service, much to probably his wife's frustration. But he was up within a couple weeks giving the sermon for Christmas. And he did just play basketball today, or last Sunday. And we're going to tell him not to play basketball. You'll notice there's a dude on his leg. But he's back playing basketball.